Hello, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our webinar on our draft business plan and budget for 25-26, which we launched last week. We're really keen to hear your views on our priorities and our budget for the years ahead. I'm Liz Rosser, and my colleague Aileen Armstrong and I are going to take you through this webinar. You're probably familiar with how our webinars work, but just in case, just to say that we really want this session to be as interactive as possible. We've already had some questions sent in advance, so thanks for those, and we'll definitely pick those up as we go through. But also you can submit live questions by clicking on the link below the video. If you'd like to include your name, that's great, but you can also ask questions anonymously. We'll try and answer the questions as we go, but also leave an opportunity at the end. Also, just to say that this stream will be available on Catch Up, as will the slides, and also will include links to relevant websites on the resources page for this event. So please feel free to share with colleagues. Okay, so in terms of our consultation, we're consulting on our business plan and budget for 25-26. So that starts on the 1st of November this year, and that's the final year of our 23-26 corporate strategy. So today we're going to talk about our increased programme of work in response to a rapidly changing legal sector, our budget, our practicing certificate fee contributions, and the compensation fund contribution. And as I said before, we're really keen to encourage questions from you as we go through. So just a little reminder about our corporate strategy. All this is around delivering our mission of driving confidence and trust in legal services. Our corporate strategy for 23-26 has 4 strategic priorities, and they've shaped this plan and our whole work streams and what we're doing to deliver to those priorities. Those priorities are to deliver high professional standards, to strengthen our risk-based and proactive regulation, to support innovation and technology, and to be an authoritative and inclusive organisation, meeting the needs of the public, consumers, those we regulate, and our staff. So our draft business plan sets the planned deliverables for the final year, the year ahead from November, to deliver those priorities. We're not going to go through all of the deliverables and the priorities in detail, but the full draft document is available on our website. So we'd be really pleased, really encourage you to take a look, and we'd love to get questions and feedback from that. But we're just going to give a sort of high level overview of the direction. So I'm now going to hand over to Aileen, who's going to give us some context of the change in profession. Aileen.
Great, thank you, Liz, and hello, everybody. I think we're going to put up a slide on the shifting risks in the legal market, because since we developed the corporate strategy, the 3-year strategy, the legal market really has seen a period of rapid change, and with it a change in risk to consumers. And we've seen, for example, an increase in the number and size of firms failing, which has led us to carrying out more significant interventions. And although that's dropped back a little bit recently, there is always uncertainty as to when or whether it will keep falling back again or to rise. And, you know, that context has really also fed into significant work that we're doing now. It's led us to launch our consumer protection review and our work on safeguarding client money, which is a substantial program of work that wasn't anticipated at the time of setting the strategy. And we're also increasingly concerned about issues in the high volume consumer claims market, and we're progressing work there. We're going to speak about that a bit more later. Another piece of context is that we've seen a large rise in reports to us about solicitors' misconduct. That's gone up 20% since last year if you compare the first 4 years of the financial year. And so we're really looking at the data to try and understand what might be driving the increase, but it does appear to be, you know, a significant change and possibly one that will be sustained. And we're also now carrying out more investigations. So again, another stat on the early part of this year, we're opening up on average 40% more investigations a month than we did last year. And so all of this is likely to lead to us taking more enforcement action. And another point about kind of the work that we're doing now in terms of any enforcement action that we do take, the cases that we're dealing with now are more varied and often more complex than we've dealt with in the past. And just to give you some examples, at the moment, we have been dealing with cases with complex issues such as sexual harassment, bullying, and offensive communications. We've got cases that are dealing with novel issues such as abusive litigation aimed at silencing legitimate criticism. So those cases often referred to as SLAPs, SLAP standing for strategic litigation against public participation. And there are also a number of large and complex interconnected cases, such as our investigations into high volume consumer claims and into the behaviour of solicitors linked to the Post Office Horizon scandal. So we really need to make sure that we can deal with the increase in cases we're seeing by increasing resource in our investigation teams. And that will also enable us to continue to seek improvements to both the quality and timeliness of our investigation work. And we also anticipate further change, particularly driven by technology and AI, which offers the opportunity for more affordable, improved legal services, but could also bring new risks. So we need to be able to respond to these risks while maximising opportunities that could benefit the public. So moving on, given these shifting risks, we've responded by accelerating some of our work and by introducing new work streams. We really want to make sure that we're using our data and intelligence to identify and manage new risks as effectively as possible. And this work has really increased in importance over the course of the strategy and is really crucial to making sure that we focus on the areas which are going to make the most difference to the public. So as the slide said, we're investing in the future here. We've accelerated our current risk and data program, and that's requiring substantial investment in people and technology. And we'll use our data-driven insight and intelligence to identify risks where possible and to analyse their impact. We'll use it to take proactive actions to seek to manage risks effectively. And we're using our data and our intelligence to help prioritise our regulatory activities. And we've also moved quickly in other areas to develop new significant programs of work that weren't, as I said, in our original strategy. So I've touched on these, but just to highlight that we've got these programs. The first one I've mentioned is our work on safeguarding client money. And many of you will be familiar that this is a wholesale review of how we can most effectively protect client money, including when firms should handle this money. We've also got, as I've mentioned, a program to make sure that the high volume consumer claims market is really working in the interest of consumers. On the back of our investigations that we have and analysis, our concerns have really significantly increased. And we're concerned that behaviours by some firms in this area of the legal market are putting consumers at risk of large or wide-scale detriment. And the third new programme that I want to highlight is our work in relation to professional ethics. This programme covers our work in response to recent high-profile concerns about professional ethics, such as SLAPs and issues in the in-house sector, including those linked to the Post Office Horizon scandal. And at its core, this work is really going to be looking at what we can do to make sure that ethics are at the front and centre of the mind for all practicing solicitors. So each of these programs is really quite crucial and central to our plans this year. But of course, it can always be that new issues will arise throughout the year, and we're going to need to be fleet of foot and flexible in responding to those issues, and really making sure that we have an ongoing process of prioritisation. And in terms of new areas, that could include responding to any directions that the Legal Services Board, our oversight regulator, may decide to impose following the review that it has done into our handling of the Axiom Inns case. And of course, because these are new issues, there can be anything come up in the year ahead. So I think we're just keen to emphasize that, of course, we set out our plan, but that we make sure that we have the ability to reprioritize if necessary. So moving on to this slide just sets out a couple of points in terms of really underpinning the point that I want to make of our commitment to delivering value for money. We will continue to build on our work to deliver efficiencies where we can. And for example, our program of work to improve our investigation processes is delivering results. We've picked it out in the business plan, but our investigations team are now concluding 18% more cases than they were a year ago. So there is improvement happening, but we do know that given the significant increase in the work that we need to do in response to that context that I was laying out, in truth, efficiencies will only go so far. So we have also looked at whether there are other areas of work that we could actually deprioritize, things that we had in our mind maybe when we set the strategy a little while ago, but perhaps that we can deprioritize so that we can focus on these areas that are going to deliver the biggest benefit for the public. And so to relieve some of that upward pressure on our resource and budget, we have decided to pause or postpone some work that we originally set out to deliver by the end of 2026. So we've picked out a couple there on the slide. We've paused development of a safe testing environment for innovation and technology while we really focus first on exploring the demand and potential benefits of that. And we've also, we're carrying out further work around data quality and our technical infrastructure prior to potentially moving forward and developing a long-term strategy for sharing third-party data in the public interest. We have done other things as well, decisions that we've taken to pause work, for example, on producing a policy statement about ESG, that's environmental, social and governance. So we won't publish something on that in this coming year now. And we decided not to extend our customer service accreditation across our whole organisation. And again, I think those just illustrate where we've had to make some decisions about what we can and should do in this coming year. So I was going to pass back to Liz, who's going to talk a bit more about the budget.
Thank you, Aileen. Thanks. So what does all this mean for the budget? So the large increase in investigations that Aileen talked about, alongside those 4 areas of significant additional work for us, so ethics, high volume consumer claims, safeguarding client money, and of course, improving how we manage risk and data. All those are essential to make sure we're regulating effectively in the public interest. Now, in the current year, 24-25, we've already had to draw on additional resource to allow us to progress new areas of working and increased activity, funding this through reprioritisation and probably more even through using our reserves. But this work continues into next year, and we no longer have the reserves ready to do that. So we will need to think about what it means for the budget and the practicing certificate fee. Now, each year we do work to minimise any increase in fees. Aileen talked about the efficiencies, and that's very much something that we're continuing and that is a focus for us to deliver value for money. Over the last 6 years, we've actually managed to keep our costs and subsequent increases in the practicing certificate fee down. And in that period, our fees have gone up by an average of around 2% a year, so actually lower than inflation. However, the scale of the additional work and the resources this year and next year means that we do now need to increase our fees. And of course, all those things that Aileen's talked about, these new things, are on top of our other key deliverables. So if you look in the detail of the business plan, you can see all of our deliverables for next year, but that includes all our other work, such as our anti-money laundering work, support for innovation and tech, and of course, delivering the solicitor's qualifying exam. So do take a look at all the details on all those commitments. So all this means that we're proposing that the amount being funded by PC fees is increasing by 16.3 million to 86.5 million. Now we do appreciate that increase are never welcome, but hopefully we've made it clear the rationale and the reasons for that. It's needed to allow us to deliver in the public interest and to achieve our ongoing mission to drive confidence and trust in legal services. So in terms of the PC fee itself, so just a reminder that the practicing certificate fee is made up of many parts. It actually funds 6 organisations, and we're just talking about our part here. So the 2 largest parts of the practicing certificate fee are the part for the SRA and the part for the Law Society, and we both consult separately on those. So the Law Society has already undergone a consultation on their portion. And also it covers levies that are payable for the Legal Services Board, the Solicitors Disciplinary Tribunal, the Legal Ombudsman and OPBAS. But what we do is we combine the feedback from the consultations and then that jointly sets the PC fee for next year. But as I say, at the moment, we're just talking about the SRA portion. And we are proposing to increase our share of the individual fee from £164 to £190. However, in terms of the compensation fund, we're actually proposing that we can bring that down a little this year so that individual contributions reduced from £90 last year to £70 this year. So the increase in the PC fee will largely be offset by the reduction in the individual compensation fund contribution. And also the firm fee for the compensation fund, we're proposing reducing from 2,220 to 1,950. So all of this means combined together in terms of the individual, the PC fee and the compensation fund together will be 260, which is a rise of £6 or 2.4%. In terms of the increase, as I said, it's 16.3 million on our income that's raised from PC fee, and that's from a mix of things that we've outlined. So the new and accelerated activities around transformation that Aileen's talked about equates to about 7 million of that. The increased volumes and increased workload in our investigations and other activities probably equates to about 5.5, 5.3 of that. And then, of course, there's inflationary pressures and national insurance costs, and those added together adds just under 4 million to our budget. So that's how that increase of 16 million is broken down. I'm going to hand back to Aileen, I think now, Aileen.
Yeah, absolutely. So, as you know, is clear. This is a consultation at this stage, and so we are very keen to hear your views. And we've set out the key dates on the slide here, so you can respond online. The link is visible there on the slide. The closing date for responses is 19th of June. And we've got lots of further engagement planned over May and June, and that's going to include roundtables with legal representatives groups, local law societies, consumer groups, and we do focus groups with members of the public, and we find all of those really valuable. So we take account of all the views coming in, and following the consultation period, the next steps will be that the board will then consider responses and feedback on the draft that we've published, and will make a final decision on the SRA's funding requirement at its meeting at the end of June. And following that, we'll advise the Law Society Council of the SRA's requirement and confirm the total group requirement on the 1st of July. And then we go back to our board, and they'll be asked to approve the practicing fee for 25-26 at the meeting on 7th and 8th of July this year. And the step beyond that is that then we put in our application to the Legal Services Board, the LSB, and we put that in as soon as we can after that approval from our board. And we would expect a response from the LSB over the summer. And then we're able to go back to our board. We have a meeting in September with our board to talk about, and they will be asked to approve a final version of the business plan and budget for 25-26. And we will also publish a summary of the responses that we've received, and the updated final business plan and budget. We'll publish that in October in readiness for our new year starting on the 1st of November. So we've kind of laid out that position, but do please give us your views, and also if there are any questions. I know we've got a few come in already, but any further questions, do pop them in the chat now. So I think we're going to pick up some questions that we're receiving, and I think actually there were some that we had in advance of this a webinar, didn't we, Liz?
We did, Aileen. So perhaps I can ask you a couple that came in advance. We've also had one or two more come in, and do keep sending those questions in. It'd be great to answer all your queries. So Aileen, at the start we talked about our overarching priorities, and one of those is to support innovation and technology. So we have had a question come in on AI. So the question is, how does the SRA propose to supervise and regulate the use of AI in law firms? How will firms be penalised if it has delivered wrong advice to clients due to the errors of AI tools it has been used as part of the process?
Yeah, so as I say, this one came in advance. I think it's really useful to kind of highlight that this sort of question feels really topical, and just wanted to mention, and you may have seen that of course many firms are already using AI to support and deliver a range of back office and public facing services and other things, but you may have seen that we very recently authorised the first law firm providing legal services through artificial intelligence, AI alone, and so under our rules, I think this gives a good illustration. Named regulated solicitors will still be ultimately accountable for, that firm in that case delivering high professional standards, and this means that those solicitors will also be responsible for all the system outputs and for anything that goes wrong. All regulated law firms must also have a minimum level of insurance in place, of course, to protect clients. But I think it's a good example of what we're doing now, and gives insight into what I think we will be doing more of into the future. So in this particular case, before authorising the firm, we leaned in, we engaged with the owners to consider the processes the firm has in place and to assure ourselves that our rules can be met by an AI service. And, examples of what we were looking at, we sought assurance that there are appropriate processes in place to quality check work, to keep client information confidential, and to safeguard against conflicts of interest. So all of the obligations are unchanged. So I think we will be looking at this more. But I think fundamentally this is about ensuring that the public know that high professional standards are being met. So any new law firm comes with potential risks. And if there are novel risks, we need to look at that closely. And we know that this is likely to be the first of many AI-driven law firms. So we'll be monitoring the progress of this model and development really closely, so that we can manage the risks, and crucially, so that we ensure that the potential benefits are realised for consumers. And just to take a kind of a step back as well, just broadly speaking, our approach to AI, I think, covers three things, and it is really about ensuring that there's a framework within which solicitors and law firms can use AI responsibly and in line with their regulatory objectives. And I think our principle-based approach really does help with that. Secondly, we are wanting to ensure that AI is harnessed to improve access to justice and to the legal services market. And I think we also, the third thing that we do is really encourage the responsible ethical use of AI in a way to ensure that we're really working hard to foster growth and innovation in the sector. So really broad-ranging kind of issues here, kind of opened up by that question. Thank you.
Thanks, Aileen. Can I ask you to answer another pre-submitted question? So this question says, why doesn't the SRA prioritise issuing clear new guidance on solicitors' reporting obligations to improve the quality and relevance of reports from solicitors and to create a much more powerful deterrent to prevent misconduct?
Yeah, so I'm interested in the wording of the question, as you say, it came in advance. So just to highlight that, not that long ago, so in 2019, and many people will be familiar with this, we consulted on new rules, and we clarified following that our position on the reporting obligation, and there was a lot of stakeholder engagement that went into that. We consulted on a range of options for a proposed new obligation for those we regulate, to in terms of how they report concerns to us, and we were really focused on ensuring that that the approach is clear, that the approach is consistently applied, and allows us to take early action to protect the public. So we did do all that and introduced those changes in our new standards in regulations in 2019. So we do have that in place, and we also issued supporting guidance at that time to give additional information in relation to reporting and notification obligations. And coming more recently, following further kind of stakeholder engagement, including through our in-house virtual reference group, we've also issued guidance aimed at the in-house sector. So, and that covers, things like wrongdoing by their employer who might not be regulated. But as I say, the question implies that maybe there is something else. If there are particular concerns about this or any areas that you think are unclear, then I think we would really appreciate, anyone sending us details of that. And of course, we will take a look. I was going to pick up, Liz. I think we've had a couple of questions come in. So shall I pick up? I think there was one here about noting that in the business plan consultation, we've referenced that we're going to do work to strengthen our continuing competence requirements. And the question is asking, when will that commence and what can we expect to see? And so, that is right. I think this will be a key piece of work over the coming year. We have been doing a review, and so, we expect to bring forward ideas and to consult on those. So I don't have, the answer of everything that will cover at the moment, but I think, it is underpinned by wanting to look again at whether the arrangements that we have are operating, as effectively as they can. And so I think, we want to explore those options in conversation and in consultation with people. So that will be coming forward, in due course and in the coming year. Are there other? I'm just trying to see if there are other questions that have come in. So maybe what we should pick up is that picking up the conversation on client money in legal services consultation. Liz, part of that consultation was around the operation of the compensation fund and how that is split. Alongside the business plan consultation, we've published details of responses to our question of whether we should change the percentages that we collect from firms versus solicitors. And I wondered, Liz, if you could explain, what we're doing about that and picking up those wider questions there.
Absolutely. Thanks, Aileen. So yeah, we did look at the way the fund is currently split, and we looked at whether we should change the 50% firm contribution and 50% individual contribution. And we consulted on potentially changing that to a 70-30 split. We've actually decided not to go ahead with that change at this time. So our plan is to keep the 50-50 for now. And as you say, Aileen, we publish our reasons for that. But in terms of the broader consultation, this was a wide-ranging consultation. I'm sure many of you fed back and responded to it. And it was a very well responded to consultation. We had over 450 written responses and engaged with 330 people through roundtables and discussions. So we've got a wealth of really, really useful feedback, which we're working through at the moment. We had to consult on the 50-50 split now because we needed to make that decision in time for the budget cycle, but the rest we're taking time to analyse thoroughly and to decide what our next steps are. So we will publish consultation findings on everything else once we've worked through that. So there will be more to come later in the year.
Thanks, Liz. And actually, there's been a follow-up, I think, question on AI and kind of interest in our approach to that, because, there's as I said, there's myriad ways that firms are using AI, I think, in some ways, and the question is about whether we would always know that, and how we ensure that we're not just waiting for something to go wrong. And I think the key here in response to that is that the responsibility, the obligations apply to all firms and solicitors. So the responsibilities there, the rules and principles apply there. So what we're saying in terms of, when we have seen something, truly novel, we've been engaging with the sector. We are aware of a number of different ways that firms are working, and it's just about making sure that when there's something really novel, if there's something that we want to share with the sector and explain our thinking on it, as with the recent case, we've done that. But I think crucially what this comes down to is that the obligations and our monitoring and any concerns that come through apply regardless of the tools that are being used. So hopefully that's helpful to pick up that point. I don't think we've had other questions, so I think that's where we might draw a line here for this webinar. But we will, if there's any subsequent questions or anything wider, we will make sure that we pick that up. And if there are wider points, even beyond the topic here that have been raised, we'll take a look. And we could always try and cover things in future webinars or communications. So hopefully the webinar and our discussion has been useful. And of course, just a reminder, please do respond to our consultation. Until then, thank you, Liz. Thank you for all of your time to listen in. I commend the document to you, but also wish you a very good afternoon. Thanks very much. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Thank you.